Hello everyone, it's Kelly here on the Curatorially Yours channel. Thank you for stopping by, whether you're new or have been following me from the very beginning. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for stopping by. I'm so glad to have you. So thank you so much. I thought I would record a very brief check-in about the Australian Reading Challenge that I am hosting over on the Storygraph. So if you are interested after you watch this video and think you'd like to join, it's not too late. You can still join in. You just need to go and search for Australian Reading Challenge 2022, or you can search under my name there on the Storygraph, which is the same as my channel name, Curatorially Yours. So you can come and have a look and get involved if it sounds like something you'd be interested in. I've also filmed a video that I released sort of towards the end of last year now, where I went through each of the prompts and gave you some suggestions for books that you might like to read for this challenge for each of the prompts. So I'll link that up in the cards. I never remember which side it is. It's this side or this side. The cards. So anyway, if you would like to have a look at that, you can click on the link in the cards. But let's check in. Let's see what I have read so far for this challenge. I have read the total of 4 books. 2 of them I've already spoken about because I read them in January. And 2 of them I have not spoken about yet in terms of giving you my review of them because I read them in the month of March and I haven't filmed my March wrap up yet because when I'm filming this, it's not the end of March yet. So I still have some reading time to go, and I'm doing really well, I think, this month in terms of achieving the goals that I'm setting out for myself. I'm getting a fair bit of reading done, so I'm really pleased about that. So I'm not going to review these books in this video. I'm just going to show you what I read and tell you a little bit about the books so that if you're interested in reading them and you don't yet have a book to match that prompt, you could select this book, these books if you wish. So also just another aside before I get started and show you what I read, some of these books actually could work for multiple prompts. I'm choosing to just do 1 book per prompt, but there's no restrictions. I often think, work smarter, not harder. So if you don't have a goal necessarily to read lots and lots of Australian books, which I do, I am actually hoping to read 15 Australian books this year, at least. And only 12 of those will be as part of these prompts. So I'm actually aiming to read lots and lots of Australian books. If that's not so much an issue for you, something you're just joining in just for fun, you can absolutely use a book to do more than 1 prompt. And good on you if you can find a book that will match like 2, 3, maybe even 4 prompts. That would be amazing. So it could be done. It could be done. But yeah, if you have any of those books, you might want to share them down in as a recommendation in the comments below because other people might be looking for books to meet those prompts as well. Okay, so let's talk about what I have read so far. And I will let you know which prompts that I have put them against. But again, they may work for other prompts too. Okay, so the first one is to do with prompt number 2, which is a book set in a different Australian state. So I have read a book that is set in Hobart, Tasmania, and it is The Monster of Her Age by Danielle Binks. If you have been following me on this channel, you will know that I have spoken about wanting to read this book for some time now. So you'll be pleased to hear that I've actually managed to do it and have now read this book. It's a YA, which is not typically what I read. I don't tend to kind of gravitate towards a whole lot of YA, but I really enjoyed this and I was pleased to finally tick it off as well, having had it on my TBR for a couple of months now and really wanting to get to it. So I have now gotten to it and I'm very pleased about that. So basically this follows Ellie Marsden, who is a young woman. So I believe in the story she's 17, and she has been, her grandmother is a famous film actress and in the horror genre. So that's actually something that's quite an interesting kind of thing that's woven throughout this whole story, is the genre of horror films. So it's not a horror book itself, but it talks a lot about horror films. And so basically Ellie doesn't get on with her grandmother Lottie, but she, how to put it? So her grandmother is dying. We find that out really, really early on. And so that's why she has come back to Tasmania, because she doesn't currently live in Tasmania. I think, lives in Sydney. And so she's come back to Hobart to basically be there and be sitting with her be one of the people who's sitting with her grandmother who's had a stroke and is no longer verbally communicating with people. So they're just sort of taking turns sitting with Lottie. But we find out that they don't get along, and that it's sort of the reason why they don't get along is very slowly revealed throughout the book. So if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in, sort of the complex dynamics of human relationships and kind of thinking about, you know, what it is that kind of keeps families together even after they've had these had circumstances that have taken them apart, then this might be a really good book for you. It's beautifully written. I really, really love Danielle Binks's writing. I will say it wasn't perfect, so I really loved and gave 5 stars to another Danielle Binks book, which is why I wanted to get to this one, and that book was called The Year the Maps Changed, and I absolutely loved it, and I thought that one was perfection. This one didn't quite live up to that, in my opinion. There were a couple of pacing issues, especially at the end. I felt it kind of went a little bit too fast. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to review these books. Why am I reviewing them? Anyway, I still really enjoyed it. So even though it wasn't quite as much of a favorite as The Year the Maps Changed, I really enjoyed this. So you may too. So I'd encourage you to pick it up if that sounds like something that you'd be into. The Monster of Her Age by Danielle Binks. Okay, so that was for prompt number 2. The next book I'm going to talk about is for prompt number 3, which is a book written by an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander author, which this book definitely exceeds because it has 3. So the authors are Beryl, Cruse, Liddy, Stewart, and Sue Norman. And the book is called Muttonfish, The Surviving Culture of Aboriginal People and Abalone on the South Coast of New South Wales. If you'd like to hear my review of this book, I will link up in the cards my January wrap-up where I spoke about this book because I read it then. And that will also be the case for the next book. So that's where it will be. Link in the cards. But this was amazing. I really enjoyed this book. I learned so much about the culture of the south coast of New South Wales, which is the state in which I live. And I read this when I was on holidays down the south coast. So I really appreciated being kind of in location to read this book and to be learning about its Aboriginal, that region's Aboriginal history, and the challenges that Aboriginal people in this area still face in terms of bureaucracy and government that doesn't really listen to what they need. So it's if that sounds like something you'd like to read, can highly recommend this book. It was really, really good. So that was that one. The next one is for prompt number 4, which is a book written by a new to you author. And for that book, I read The Rain Heron by Robbie Arnott. I heard lots of good things about this book, and I really did enjoy it. Again, I talked about this in my January wrap-up, so you can follow the link in the cards if that sounds like something you'd like to hear more about, hear my thoughts on. But I really, I did enjoy this book. It certainly wasn't, it had its problems. There were things that were difficult to follow, or the resolution of certain aspects of this book wasn't as satisfying as I would have liked, but I still can recommend this book. And I am interested to read more books by Robbie Arnott subsequently. So one of his books called Flames, I think, is which I believe was his debut, is on my TBR, so I would like to get to that at some point. But yeah, can recommend The Rain Heron. It's really unlike a lot of other things that I've read before. Like, it's a really interesting concept of a book, and the delivery is really good. Robbie Arnott's writing is really, really great. So would recommend. The last one I'm going to talk about today, we're going to jump quite a few prompts because this is for prompt 11, a debut book by an Australian author. And that book was Now That I See You by Emma Batchelor, which won the Australian Vogel's Literary Award. It was the winner. And I don't know anything about that prize, so I can't tell you any more about that. But it was published in 2021, so it's quite a recent book. I remember I picked this one up in a secondhand bookstore, and I just was kind of, I guess, drawn to the beautiful spine. So I saw the spine on the bookshelf and picked it out to have a look at it. Read the premise and thought that sounds really interesting. So basically this is tracking the sort of the eventual demise, and you kind of find that out early on, so that's not a secret. It kind of talks about that at the back. But it's one of, so we have a previously heterosexual couple, where the man in that couple comes out as trans, and sort of but it's told from the perspective of the female, partner in that relationship. So as he becomes a they, and sort of is exploring their own kind of, their own sexuality, their own gender identity. It's told from the perspective of a partner who is trying to be really supportive, and is struggling at times, and is trying to do the right thing, and sort of just doesn't always get it right. And it's kind of the evolution of that relationship as it sort of changes, and also the two people change on their own as well. So it's very raw and very real, and I really, really enjoyed it. I ended up giving this 5 stars. I'll talk more about it when I do my wrap up for the month of March, and I haven't yet given my review of this book, but I loved it. It was really, really good, and I would highly recommend it. It's also very short, so it is 206 pages. However, a lot of those pages, because it has like text messages and emails and kind of journal entries throughout. So it's not always, straight text on each page. It kind of goes by quite quickly. I listened to this as an audiobook for probably about the first half, and then I switched to the reading the book, the paper copy of the book, and just because I was like, I can read this much faster than this audiobook is going, even though I'd sped it up to 1.25. So I just decided to take over and just keep reading, and loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was really, really good. So can highly recommend, and suggest that you pick yourself up a copy because it was really good. So those are my 4 books that I have read so far in the challenge. These 4, and I can highly recommend them as working really well for those prompts. Some of them, as I said, could work for other prompts as well. Maybe Robbie Arnott is not a new to you author, so maybe that would not work for that prompt for you. Maybe you live in Tasmania, in which case you'd probably want to switch it to a book set in your home state. Anyway, would love to talk to you about these books down in the comments if you have any further questions about them. But yeah, definitely can recommend each one of them. So that's how I'm going on my challenge so far. 4 down, and which means I've got 8 to go. So I'm really keen. I think I've made good progress so far. I've got a couple lined up to read in my April TBR. So I think I will be able to be adding some more to my list very, very soon. But tell me all about how you're going with your challenge. If you're participating, I'd love to hear all about it down in the comments. Or if you've got recommendations to share for one of the prompts, I would love to hear about that too. Bye.